Bem-vindas e bem-vindos ao É Apenas Fumaça, onde se fala sobre a sociedade com quem quer falar sobre ela. Eu sou o Ricardo Ribeiro.
Eu sou a Maria Almeida.
Hoje temos como convidada Sham, nome fictício de uma estudante síria a viver em Portugal e que tem trabalhado com refugiados nos últimos 5 anos na Turquia, Síria, Líbano e Portugal e tem estado envolvida em várias ações humanitárias nestes países. A Sham pediu que usássemos hoje o nome fictício por receio de represálias sobre a sua família, que ainda hoje vive na Síria. A nossa conversa será também em inglês, porque apesar de a Sham falar um pouco de português, sente-se mais confortável nessa língua. Podem ler a tradução em apenasfumaca.pt. Bem-vinda.
Obrigada.
To a young Majd Ibrahim, then becoming of age, it increasingly appeared that it was the West where his nation's future lay. Like other middle-class boys in Homs, he wore Western clothes, listened to Western music, watched Western videos, but Majd was also afforded a unique window onto the outside world. His father, an electrical engineer, worked at one of the best hotels in Homs, the Safir. And Majd, fascinated by the hotel, with its constant bustle of travelers, made any excuse to visit him as he went about his day. For Majd, the Safir was also a place of reassurance, a reminder that no matter what small deviation Syrian politics took along the way, he would always be able to inhabit the modern and secular world into which he was born. This is from Fractured Lands, How the Arab World Came Apart, published in 2016 by Scott Anderson for the New York Times magazine. Describe life in Syria before the war in 2011.
2011. Before the war, like, people has a normal life. We go to school, we have shops, we have restaurant, normal life, normal vibes, people learning languages. Everything was very easy to access, but you're allowed to do everything, but don't speak, don't touch politics, don't share what's happened in your mind, don't talk about anything related to the government or institution. There were this kind of robbed money from the government, but you're not allowed to talk about it. As a society, we are a society who has different religions, Christianity, Islam, Yazidi, and we have different race, like you have Arabs and Kurds, so it's a mixed country. That was before 2011. In that time, I was young. I was living in Damascus.
Were you at school?
Yes. Until 2011, I finished my high school.
Did you have a car?
When 2011, I was able to drive and I have my own car. Yeah, my own car, our house, my family. We used to travel out of the country. So, we didn't have this amount of poverty, but we have this thing that you're not allowed to have your own business other than people participating into it from the government. So it's...
On the same Fractured Lands, How the Arab World Came Apart by Scott Anderson, he writes, I can never remember my father saying anything about the regime, good or bad, Majd Ibrahim said. And I never remember any of my relatives or neighbors doing it either. When it came to the state, the most anyone would criticize was maybe the corrupt traffic policeman at the corner. You just didn't talk about that stuff with anyone. Is this what you're talking about?
No. Yeah. Everybody have this thing that they have always say, which is walls have ears. So you're not allowed to talk anything about the government. Even in the same house, inside of the one house, we never critic. My family never voted. This is our right, but we never voted. And when they when they went to the area where they vote for him to have the power. It wasn't two choice. It's just one choice. We didn't have parties. We have one party. It's a dictatorship country.
So you would go to on election day. You would have to vote for one candidate and one party.
Even we don't call it election day. We call it
referendum.
Yeah.
Well, the last referendum in 2007, Bashar al-Assad had, 99%?
Around 99. No, this time it was lower, to 92. They were trying to make it real. I think it was like this percentage.
And even though people didn't talk about politics and about the regime, how did the Syrian people feel about the Assad regime?
No one in real. No one have this conscious of critic, but no one liked the situation, and it was like from the father to the son. So my family raised to not critic, and what happened in the 80s when the Hafiz Assad regime burned whole city like Hama. People become afraid to talk even about what happened. Like it was in that time, 3 days, the city was burning and people died, but not a normal. It was like a massacre. Like it was families who were disappeared there.
In March 2011, a group of 15 children between the ages of 10 and 14 years old painted the walls of Dara, and because of this were detained, beaten, raped and tortured. Describe the graffitis and what what was written there, and talk about the significance of this particular episode for what happened afterwards.
So in 2011, in March, the children wrote this by the influence of the Egyptian revolution. Go away, doctor, we don't want you here. And they were like in ages of 11 and 13. This is by the common sense, they are children. And even in the body figure, they are children. One of them was very like name, very well known, which is Hamza al-Khateeb. Was all those children was tortured, and Hamza al-Khateeb was tortured until his death. In that time, people start to protest. They didn't ask for him to go away. They were asking for a change. And people keep protesting. And even in Damascus, there was this kind of one protest that people just, went to the street. They didn't know what to say. They just say like, change. They were not even, they reached this level. In that time, they didn't reach the level of saying, we don't want. Then everything changed, because when they reached the higher power, because the people who tortured those children were the cousin of their president, and they told them, even you go back to your houses or we will rape your women. This is a kind of insulting for everybody.
That's
in Daraa.
The cousin of Bashar al-Assad said that to the people who were protesting.
And he tortured the children as well. So in the first speech, I remember in 2011, I was back from the school, like just running home. I want to hear what's happening, like what he's gonna say. He's gonna say like, because people before the war loved him because they thought that he is better than his father. And they were saying he's good, but the people who's around him is not good. So we were expecting him to say something like, forgive these people, or we were gonna change or something. No, instead of that, he went out and he said, we are germs, you are germs, the people who are protesting are germs, terrorists. And this is, I think, the stupidest action that happened in that time.
And how were people protesting at that time?
Peacefully, like very peacefully. Like the kind of conscience that people had in 2011 till 2012 was really impressive. People hold flowers, paint, graffiti, walls, all the kind of protests like that. When I see 25 of April here in Portugal and the red flowers, we hold all the colors, like, and And even when he wanted in Daraya, when the army entered, like when people went out and hold flowers, and one of them is Riyas Matar. He died in the prison, but he is a person who was like a figure of peaceful protesting, because he was peaceful until his last moments. And people in that place, in this small city, they hold the flower, and the army was like, no, we're not gonna kill those people. So they changed the army. They changed the people who were in that point.
And were you participating in those protests?
In 2012, on 25 of February, it was my first protest, because I was scared. Before of that, I was helping, like just sending some food to the people who was in the areas and something like that. But I was in that level. I didn't protest in that level until I lost one of my friends. It was just for me like...
What happened to your friend?
My friend, he was in Homs. In that time, Damascus was like very normal. Not very, but it was like not the amount of protest that was happening in Homs. So he was in one of the small areas in Homs, and he was like just videotaping, just trying to transfer the image to outside world, because in that time the regime didn't allow the international journalism to get in. So like normal people start to hold cameras and videos and start to be very professional in this. And he was holding the camera, video what's happening in Homs, and then a bomb came. He went to help the guy, and another bomb came, and the hospital, it wasn't able to take them to the hospital because it's gonna be a slaughter, not a hospital. So he didn't get the help, so he died.
On the 2nd of August 2011, Ziad Majed, Lebanon and Syria researcher, assistant professor of the Middle Eastern Studies at the American University of Paris, told to Democracy Now!
In 1982, there was an uprising in Hama, a popular one, but also the Muslim Brotherhood participated actively to it. And then the Syrian regime response was a brutal destruction of the old part of the city with heavy bombardment and with a massacre against the civil population that led to the death of more than 20,000 people in few days. In addition to that, there were, during the 80s, a wave of terrors, assassinations, arrests, death squads killing and targeting people. The toll was close to 40,000 people killed.
This was in 1982, when Syria was governed by Hafez al-Assad, father of Bashar al-Assad, the current president. How did the regime respond to the protesters in 2011 and afterwards?
I mean, you heard what happened in the 80s, but people say that my families, for example, they were saying like it's going to be worse and worse and worse. How they respond with the direct fire, like it wasn't a gas bomb. It's something we wish to have in Syria. We wish to be in a protest and someone throw a gas thing or this thing that make you like cry. No. It's a direct fire. It's if you're dead or you're taken as a hostage, you will be in a prison. Maybe now they are like after 5 years, it's after like now 6 years. There are some people who are in the prisons with not even accused to do anything, and they are tortured. Many people were tortured to death. Just before 2 days ago, there were like an article from Amnesty who said like 13,000 person was killed in one of the sector of prisons in Syria, in Sadnaya. So imagine, and this is like it's black torture. It's not normal.
You're talking about the Amnesty International, the report that they launched about Sednaya, the secret Syrian prison, in which more than 10,000 people, mostly citizens, were tortured and hanged by the Assad regime.
Yeah.
Since 2011, tens of thousands of people have disappeared into a vast network of prisons and detention centres run by the Syrian government. Many have been taken to Sednaya, a notorious and terrifying prison where detainees are incarcerated in horrific conditions, systematically and brutally tortured. Thousands have died in confinement. Inaccessible to journalists and independent monitoring groups, the prison is a black hole of which no recent images exist.
Is this what happens to political dissidents in Syria?
It's much worse even. And it's not only in Sednaya, in many parts. It reminds me of what's happened to the Jewish in the Second War in the concentration camp in Germany. I think it's what's happening. It's even much worse than that. And people who are in prison tell you that the worst thing there is not even the type of torturing, but hearing the people tortured. It's just psychological destruction for the person.
You were talking about a friend that was killed in the demonstrations. Where are your friends and family today?
My friend, family who killed in Homs.
No, where are your friends that you have today and family?
Okay, all my friends almost. There are my friends who are until now in prisons and without any accused, and others who are, we don't know where are they, but we know that they are taken by a regime militias. And there are people who are out of the country, Turkey, Lebanon, and Egypt, trying to live, and there are people who are refugees in Europe. So we are all around the continent.
Do you still speak to them? To some of them?
Yeah, and many of them I avoid to speak because I don't have the right word to say. I really don't, there are some of the people that I know. One guy actually, he was captured by the regime for 2 years without any accusing. When he went out, they joined him to the army. And even though he's against what's happening, but he's now in the army, no way out, no way to stay in. And I really avoid to speak to him because I feel that I am ignorant to live a normal life and he is not.
And why did you leave Syria?
Because one of my friends get in the prison, and I was afraid because if you run away, it's better than you are in their hand. It's better to say if you're dead, it's better to be in their hand because you don't know what will happen then. So it was the first step of the long journey.
Can you describe your journey from Syria to where you are now?
So I went out. Then in that time I was able to go to Egypt, trying to complete my study and looking for a way. I was waiting to see if it's possible or not possible, what was going to happen with him. Then went to Turkey, and then I got a scholarship to be in Portugal.
Are you a refugee?
Here, I'm not. I don't have a status of refugee, but I don't think it's different because we are all human.
In 2016, the United Nations identified 13.5 million Syrians requiring humanitarian assistance, of which more than 6 million are internally displaced within Syria. A January 2017 report registered over 4.8 million refugees outside of Syria. Where have these refugees gone to?
So we are talking about the internal or the external?
Both.
So external people go like in the early of 2013, you can say Lebanon, Egypt, Turkey, and Iraq, and and Jordan. And then they are not allowed to enter Jordan. They are now in Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan. The worst camps I have ever been is, I never been in Jordan, but I've been in Turkey and Lebanon and Egypt. And I think the worst was the one in Lebanon. They are nothing, basically nothing. It's just a building, tent building. They are not even taken care by the government, neither by UNHCR. It's the worst. And people there are not only suffering from the ambience of living, but they are also suffering from the security. A lot of marriage under 18 is happening for girls because their parents are afraid of them being robbed, and they want to give an excuse to make their children married because they want to secure her from being robbed. And internally, there's a kind of being a refugee and you are settled more or less in one place, but there is a kind of people who go and back to their places, try to stay at their home. And many people was killed because they went back to their houses and they were in danger zone.
That is internally. So
internally, and there are people
from your house to a safe house.
Yeah, like if
back.
you are, for example, people who are in suburb of Damascus, they come to Damascus and they were okay. We go back to their house. They the fighting, and the next day were calmer, but unfortunately they go back and they got killed. And not only internally, there are people who are externally who go back and say it's better to be there, but they get killed.
Recently you were in Lebanon, like you were talking before, to help a family of refugees. Can you talk about that?
So I was in Lebanon actually twice. The first journey was to make a workshop in one of the refugees camps. The second one was to help one of the family who's a father who are refugee in Belgium, and he was waiting for the family reunion for his wife and his 3 children. But what happened while he was waiting, a bomb come and killed the mother. For sure, the children see the mother when she was dying, and they are too much traumatized. So there were nobody to take the children from Lebanon to Belgium, because refugees who are in Europe are not allowed to enter Lebanon for political reasons between the Lebanese authorities and Syrian authorities. So I have a student status. I went to Lebanon, take the children who are with no mother, and take them to Belgium. It was too intensive emotionally, because I had this feeling that I'm in the place of their mother, but logically it should be very easy. You're making family reunion, and while they were waiting, the mom was died. Why? Why I'm taking her place? I mean, in the plane, but it was good to see the father reunited with his children, but it was this feeling that there is this kind of unhappiness, where is the mom?
Turkey hosts 2.8 million Syrian refugees, more than any other country worldwide. Lebanon hosts around 1 million Syrian refugees, 20% of the total population. Jordan hosts approximately 650 Syrian refugees, 10% of the population. Iraq, where 3.1 million people are already internally displaced, hosts 228,000 Syrian refugees. In Europe, where more than 700 million people living here, and where around 1 million Syrians ask for asylum, we host 150,000 Syrian refugees. What should the European Union do about this, and what has done so far?
I mean, it's great that people is hosting. It's amazing. People, let's say we are talking about society levels, not politically levels. They are hosting, many people are doing a lot of efforts. But if we compare it to the amount of the, like, say, the catastrophe that's happening, it's nothing making a change. And this is what we should expect from Europe. To make no one wants to be a refugee. People want to get back to their homeland, and this is what we should also move toward of it. We should reconsider of how the best way to hosting refugees, better integration programs to break the glass between the people. Work on many integration things, cultural thing, but as well we have to work toward the political actions. How we're gonna help the Syrians to finish the problem, how we have to move, because the international society should move from 2011, but no one moved, and this is what now is leading to this catastrophe that's happening worldwide, and this extremist side from all around, from even in the political level, like what's happening in the US, right and left, or in another view, what's happening to extremist people with like ISIS. This is not one night thing. It's something that's happened that lead to this kind of thinking.
You were talking about the US, and on January 27th, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, signed an executive order, which himself has called a Muslim ban, that indefinitely suspends admissions of Syrian refugees in the US, as well as refugees from any other country for 120 days. Chris Murphy, a US Senator from Connecticut, tweeted, "We bomb your country, creating a humanitarian nightmare, then lock you inside. That's a horror movie, not a foreign policy." What are your thoughts on this?
It's worse than a horror movie, first. It's real. It's he said exactly what's happening. We're bombed your country, but not only in the US, all around. Like now what's happening in Syria is more an international issue between Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the surrounding countries, and US, and about the petrol in that place, about the division of the area, about what Iran wants, about the influence of Saudi Arabia, about Turkey, a north part of Syria. This is real. And about the Muslim ban, I think Donald Trump was saying something louder, that it was already exist in the policies of US, but it was like hidden in a very nice way. But now it's much stronger. And it's you're giving a right to the racist people to be racist.
How did we get to the point that we talk about a religious conflict instead of a political conflict right now?
In Syria. Because the regime of al-Assad was working on this point in Syria from the day one of the revolution. Even though in the revolution, like you can say all the type of religious groups, like all Muslims, Christians, with different elements, and all the kind of religion that exists in Syria, they were playing on this. It's like, for example, from the day one, the regime was saying that we are gonna save the minorities. We are here to protect the minorities, and those are terrorists. And this is then, after a while, this is start to be more focused on the Alawis and Sunnis and Shia and Yazidi and Durzi. Sorry, we have many. I can mention all of them, but it was like this village, for example, is have a different religious identity other than another village. So they send people in the name of the first village to fight the other village. And this is start to be like, oh, the Sunni are killing or the Shia is killing, the Christian are not doing anything, even though there are a lot huge figures in the Syrian revolution who are different religion. You are talking about Basil Shahade, which is a Christian background from Damascus. We can talk about Fouad Ahmer. There are many, even politically, there are many differences. So he was trying on this from the day one, and I think now in 2017, unfortunately, he's kind of succeed in this, not totally.
And how did the Daesh end up playing the main role in the opposition to the regime?
Okay, so we reach another point, but shall we start how Daesh start, or?
Yes.
Okay, so from the point of view, you have the extremist thing, which is Daesh, which is doing things in the name of Islam, but when you see the actions, it doesn't have any relation of Islam. Biggest example, they are taking hostages and then they kill them. This is forbidden in Islam. How this happened when the government lost the control and wanted to lose the control of the north part of Syria, this group came and start to have the power of money and power of arms, and now they are very similar for the regime. They are the same face, but in different face of the coin. They are the same, similar, but with different shape. ISIS in the north of Syria, they say that they are against the regime, but when you go to the land itself, there are areas where ISIS is next to the regime, and they don't throw a bomb to each other. They throw it on the Syrian opposition group, which is like represented with a free army. And this is what I see the reality is. And ISIS say that we came to Syria to save the Syrians. But why are they bombing in other areas? Why are they not fighting who are saying that they are against you?
Abu Fariz, a former Free Syrian Army officer who is now in Turkey, said to The Guardian, "The Syrian people began to turn against the Free Syrian Army. When ISIS began decapitations, people started to curse those who had revolted against the regime. They thought we were the reason that these radical fighters had come to our country. But we wanted freedom, not ISIS."
For sure. For sure. People wanted freedom. ISIS, it's the same of the regime. People doesn't want another copy of it. People are looking for a free place to live in. I had a lot of discussions with the people from the camps who are in the camps, and they are wanted to live in the camps because they are like next to Syria. They don't want to move from there because they are they are seeing the future in Syria, and they don't want to be replaced by anyone else. So people want just to have a country. They want to come back, even they don't have houses, but they want to see the place, the thing that they asked to in 2011 happening. They don't want another copy of the regime.
And nowadays, with Daesh becoming the strongest player in the opposition to the regime, do you see Bashar al-Assad's regime as the lesser evil at this point?
I see them equal, without any difference.
Your family is still in Damascus.
Yes.
Can you describe the electricity and water crisis that Syria is going through, and what is it to live there in Damascus today?
So, Damascus, if we take the whole situation in Syria, the center of Damascus is considered to be the best place to live in Syria because it still have 4 hours of electricity.
4 hours
Yes.
of electricity.
Of the whole day. In some areas, no. But also they have been a problem with water from around a month with no water. People need to buy water. Health services is crap.
For how long there's no water in Damascus?
Now from a month. Because there were like this two bombing between the Free Army and suburb of Damascus, where is the source of water, and the regime. And the regime bombed the source of water, so there were like this between the both sides.
And this is the best city in Syria, you're saying?
Now, people adapt to the war there, but you can't, for example, compare the suburb of Damascus, where the Free Army or the opposition group exists, and with Damascus, because on the other side, there are still people who's living with no water, with no electricity, with no health services, with no schools, with no university, with nothing. Everything is expensive, and they have been there living from around 2.5 years, 3 years under limited access for food and very high prices with nothing. People, it's not dead, it's after dead. They are living just because it happened to be living, and they are facing the whole day the airplane throwing bombs, and people think that people who live in Damascus are safer because they are having small bombs. So it's even like this.
Abu Faris, a former Free Syrian Army officer that we quoted before, said to The Guardian, "Our Syrian revolution has failed. It is over. All that is left is a story to tell our children, a story of thousands of Syrian people who confronted Assad's tyranny and dictatorship with tremendous sacrifices." What are your hopes for the future? What do you think is going to happen?
I hope, or what I see, I hope is to just go back to Syria, just like al-Assad go, and we have a free country. Because I still believe that maybe the revolution is not that strong that it was in 2011, but there are still people who's believing into. And these people, many of them still active. So I hope their hopes and our hopes become true. What I think now, I think Syria is more international deal between the Russian and Iranian and American and Turkish, and I hope this will finish. I hope just finish.
Was it worth it?
Yes.
Why?
Because I don't want my children to. We had a good life, but we didn't have this freedom to say, and I don't want to leave my children to live in an area where they are limited and they are not free to say. I don't want my children to live in an area where al-Assad regime is there, and it's worth it because there are people who paid their soul for our goals to happen, and I think having a free army, a free country, is worth our souls. Yeah.
Este foi mais um episódio do É Apenas Fumaça, onde se fala sobre a sociedade com quem quer falar sobre ela. Obrigado, Sham.
Obrigada.
O É Apenas Fumaça é produzido por Maria Almeida, Bernardo Afonso, Frederico Raposo, Pedro Cardoso, Pedro Santos, Pedro Zuzarte, Tomás Pereira e por mim, Ricardo Ribeiro. A música é dos Lotes Fever. Ouçam mais episódios em apenasfumaca.pt ou no iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, SAP24, Comunidade Cultura e Arte e noutras aplicações de podcasts. Até já.